All right, folks, today it's Easter Sunday. Today is the 12th of April, 2020. So yesterday I was able to get out and play a course called Oak Tree Golf Club. In It's just southwest of Winston-Salem, and it's maybe about 10 miles out of the actual Route 40, Highway 40, Interstate 40, Route 422 interchange down Route 40, heading down towards Charlotte. But it's not really that far out of Winston-Salem. It's easily maybe a 10-minute drive out of the city on Route 40. So it's pretty close and pretty convenient and not a bad place. And it's kind of interesting driving out there. It's like you come out of Winston-Salem. Actually, really, in most of these other parts, I guess southeast of Asheville, southeast of the mountains, it's really just farmland, really, and it's really nice. It's kind of a lot like Virginia used to be. Northern Virginia used to be about 20 years ago before it got all built up and developed, and a lot of condos and some office buildings. And it's really interesting in a sense and sad in a sense, because there's lots of space down here, and property is fairly cheap down here relative to the DC area, but at the same time it's still going through the same kind of buildup. It's like the forces of capitalism are going to be at work somewhere. If not where they are at the moment, they're going to move somewhere, and so now you're seeing the same, or down here there's the same kind of things where you drive into a small town and there's like a Walgreens on one side of the street and a CVS on the other side of the street, and a Chick-fil-A and a Wendy's and a McDonald's and the same franchises you see pretty much everywhere. It's one of the things it saddens me about the United States, is just see it taken over by franchises, and the same kind of places pop up all over the place in these small towns. It just makes everything look the same. You know, you move to a different part of the country and it's all the same. There's so much that's the same. It's really kind of sad. But the golf course here was actually pretty decent. It's a kind of a course in a neighborhood, although it's a upscale neighborhood. These houses are, for this part of the country, or this part of North Carolina at least, they're maybe $400,000 to $1 million houses. And in this part of the country, that's quite a bit of property. You're getting a sizable house, a two-story house, big two-story house with like 3 or 4 bedrooms and so forth. It's no small, cheap place in this development. It's not a gated development, but it's still fairly upscale. And while there are some houses on the course, there's no doubt about it. On the first hole, you're looking at the back of someone's house, 45 degrees off the tee, and there's a street with residential. It's one of the main streets going into the neighborhood. That's off to the left. But the second hole is where it really kind of picks up, and the whole left side of the second hole is dotted with houses, and they're the unfortunate type of houses where there's maybe 5 feet between the houses, which is sad also, that people would buy houses that are so close together. But they're big houses and they're close together, and at least in the second hole, they're far enough off the fairway where it's not too much of a problem. But they do have OB well in front of or well behind the houses, and some holes the OB is just off the cart path, and some holes the OB is maybe 20 yards past the cart path, and in some holes you don't really see OB because it's behind the greens. But there's definitely a housing presence here. There's no question about it. On some of the holes, you're playing off a teebox or on a green. It's right under a bunch of houses, and there is some factor of people talking while you're trying to play. You're trying to tee off, and somebody's talking to their dog or calls their dog, and there's more trouble coming from the fact that they called their dog than the dog was making. So, and it's just kind of a weird vibe in some places where you're trying to play golf and somebody in their house is just going about their life, and whether they're mowing their lawn or doing yard work or whatever, it's it's one of the problems with a neighborhood course that there is a amount of interaction between people playing the course and the people that live in these houses. And this course was no exception to that rule. It was a Saturday. It was a beautiful day, nice weather, and people were out working on their yards and basically living in their lives and chilling on their back decks and stuff. And a lot of holes that overlooked the course. So there was some of that. And the fact is, one of the reasons why I decided to play this course was I have been working on I'm working on a project now to try to convert the USGA golf course database into some kind of functional system where you can see the slope of the course at the very least, which is tied pretty closely to the bogey rating of the course, which is the score that a bogey player would be expected to shoot on the course, playing from the back tees, or from each tee. Really, there's a bogey rating for each tee, slope rating for each tee, and so forth. But I usually go by the rating on the back tees. And the thing is, the slope rating and the bogey rating are very closely correlated. The course rating, which is the score that a scratch player would be expected to play, is really not well correlated. It might go up by 2, maybe 3 strokes at the most over the par rating for the course, but the bogey rating definitely varies significantly, and I think is more tightly correlated to the slope rating. So what is the bogey rating? The bogey rating is the score that a bogey player would be, someone with a bogey handicap would be expected to shoot. And a bogey handicap is 20 over par, 20 over a scratch rating. A scratch rating being 0, bogey rating is 20 over. So I don't think that's the par/course rating really matters that much to most players. The bogey rating is much more realistic in terms of the percentage of players that would be affected by it, because most players can't play a course in bogey. They definitely can't play a course in par. So to me, if you're playing 1 or 2 over, sometimes 3 over per hole, you're much more concerned with the bogey rating than the course rating. And definitely the slope is a good indicator. So one of the two, the bogey rating or the slope. Now, what I found is that the slope rating for most courses varies somewhere between 110 and 140, 142 maybe. When you see a course with a slope rating of 150, 9 times out of 10, that is a exclusive country club style course where they do have exceptionally difficult holes from the back tee on the course. And the few exceptions I've seen are Bethpage Black, which is a slope 152 course from the back tees. And every other course I've ever seen other than that's up in the 150s has been like a signature Nicklaus course or a signature Hale Irwin course or something on a country club, which is private and exceptionally difficult to get on. So 9 times out of 10, what's accessible and difficult is a slope 140 course. And that's usually hard enough. Now, the thing about this course is, for a slope 140 course, it had what I would have expected it to have, which is elevated greens, elevated tees, a fair amount of verticality. But what it didn't have was tight fairways. I thought this course was really wide off the tee, very accessible fairways off the tee. Not super wide, but definitely wider than most. There are some other courses in the area here that I found that are exceptionally tight off the tee that I'm looking forward to playing. I actually was trying to get on one, but also the thing I found out down here is it's very hard to walk on a course. Most courses generally have an online booking system, and they can be very well booked by the day of play, especially on a Saturday. That's one of the other reasons I rarely play on a Saturday, but today I didn't have time to get out during the week, and I probably won't really for the near future. But I can definitely get out on Saturday and Sunday, but I don't really like to play on Sundays. I like to play on Saturdays if I'm going to play on the weekends. I like to have a day off before I go back to work. So the big problem I had was actually finding a course I could get on. In North Carolina, it is an elective state as opposed to a mandatory state as opposed to for the lockdown. The course was open, and they had certain precautions taken for preventing the spread of coronavirus, such as sterilizing the carts, and therefore they were assigning carts to the players when they booked the tee time. So I had to make a choice between playing early or playing late. I got out at 3 o'clock and I had to walk the course. I haven't walked the course in quite some time, let's put it that way. And so part of the challenge of playing this course was the simple fact that I had to walk, carrying my very heavily loaded bag of balls and clubs. I have a lot of balls in my bag, and plus I had some video equipment that I was taking with me because I'm working on some video tricks that I'm hoping to put in my videos. So it was a real effort for me to get out there and play this. Luckily it wasn't hot at all. It was really kind of cool. It was about 70, 75 degrees. It was nice. But I would have enjoyed it a hell of a lot more if I had a cart. And I think that having the fact that I had to walk and play, it was a good, like right up close to like my limit of stopping after 9 holes or going ahead and playing the 18. I just went and played the 18. So luckily one of the things was, because I was following this guy and his kid, I was walking behind them, and they were in a cart, and they made a mistake on the number 4 hole. The number 4 hole is an elevated tee right next to a row of houses, and the number 4 hole is a par 4 hole that goes down the row of houses. They played back, which was the actual number 6 green, instead of playing down the number 4 fairway and back down the number 5 fairway. So I skipped 4 and 5 and played the proper tee box for number 6, but I played it to number 6, skipping 4 and 5. So 6, as you will have seen by now, probably because I'm already 12 minutes into this video, is a 180-yard par 3 over a small lake from a very elevated tee, and there's a lake or a marsh or something on the right-hand side. It's the same creek that runs down the number 2 fairway and you see it on the right coming back up the number 3 fairway. So luckily I played that hole okay, but when I teed off on number 7 going back up the line to the left, there were 3 or 4 houses behind the green on number 6, and you could see them in the pictures that I took. And there was a guy up there talking to his dog when I was in my backswing, literally. And this is not an easy hole. It was hitting basically into the wind. The wind was blowing back from the right front corner back to your from the left front corner back to your right. So the wind was blowing shots back into the houses. It was a nice dogleg par 4. It was a very challenging par 4, but at the same time, it wasn't fun to try to hit that hole off the tee when someone's talking to the dog and right on my shoulder. But anyway, survived it. Just saying, that's just one of the headaches that you have to deal with, on a course like this. And so went ahead and played it out, and there were some nice shots. Number 9 was very nice hole. I didn't take a shot of the tee box because I videotaped it, and then I forgot to save the videotape because it didn't do what I wanted to do. I forgot I didn't take a shot from my camera. So I didn't have a shot of the number 9 tee box, which is a very highly elevated tee over a lake of a creek, which was at least 300 yards out from the tee box to an upsloping fairway and into a green which curled away to the left away from the clubhouse. So I want to say that one of the problems with the number 9 and number 18 greens is that they are on a sort of a hilltop, and then behind that hilltop is a row of houses, and all of that territory left of the cart path for both number 18 and number 9 is OB. Okay, so if you go off the side, over that side of the hill off to the left away from the clubhouse, that all is OB back there. And when you come up 18, there's a big marsh on the left side of the fairway, and there's a creek that crosses the fairway, and then again you're coming up to that number 18 green, and all that stuff off to the left is OB. So the fairway curves around to the right and then comes back to the left to the green, but you still have the same problem. If you're long or left on that shot, that ball is going down into OB, down the back side of that green. So this was an interesting course. It wasn't really that hard. In my opinion, I think it was a pretty benign course. It was more of a challenge because of the housing and because of whatever interactions you had, somebody mowing their lawn next to the green or the fairway or starting a lawnmower behind you or starting. I mean, there was about 5 guys houses that we passed where guys were mowing their lawn. There were kids playing in their backyards, through the trees just off the fairway in some of the holes. There were dog legs where there was a patio in the backyard and so forth, right in the corner of the dog leg. And you really have to be careful to stay away from the woods on this course. Even though it's wide, there's an abrupt transition between playable land and non-playable land, and you can very quickly get into trouble if you go into the woods, even though the woods are not really that deep, and you can certainly go in there and play out of it. You still are you're often playing right into someone's backyard if you go off into the trees, and all that is going to be marked OB. So you definitely do not want to be playing off the sides of the fairway on this course. It's hard enough as it is to play when you're on the fairway of the course, because there is so much water in certain places on the course. There's a lot of valleys and divots and swales and stuff in certain places around the greens. And while it is fairly benign off the tee, it really is a benign course off the tee, you can easily get into a position where you have a bad lie, where the ball is on an uphill slope away from your feet, and it's just really tricky to hit shots. And while I don't think it's a hard course, it certainly is a challenging course in its own way. It's not a tight course, but it's not easy. I wouldn't say it's a slope 140 course, but it's definitely not a slope 130 course. It might be maybe in a sense, maybe it is at least a 130, because it's a short course. It's about 6,500 yards from the back tees. And it just is tricky in certain ways and requires heads up play. You can't be too timid around the greens, because you're almost always playing to an uphill green or some kind of challenging lie, and you really have to get the ball going when you don't think it's going to go, as like on a normal course where you have a flat green and you come off the fairway and you could just bump and run or something onto the green. It's often a challenge here where you have to hit over a 3 or 4 or 5 foot or 6 foot swale to get to the green. And there's just a big difference in playing elevated greens versus playing flat greens. You really have to be careful to get the ball up as much as you get it going, because it's very easy to get it stuck on the side and have it roll right back down to where you were trying to hit. So I'd say it's fairly well scored as a 140 course. It was definitely a nice course to play. I wouldn't say it was a great layout. It's just a neighborhood woods course. No matter what you say, there's still a lot of houses around the course, and you can only get so much aesthetic pleasure out of playing on such a course. Very limited in that regard. But it was a decent enough course, and certainly was convenient to Winston-Salem. It had a lot of things going for it. And unfortunately, the clubhouse was pretty much closed. The dining area was closed. It was all closed down because of coronavirus. So fine, I finished my round, struggled through it, got through it, and went to get something to eat, Sheets or whatever. And, all these things are open. At least you can go get something to eat. But it was less than satisfying in terms of a normal golf round, but still, considering the fact that in many states there are no golf courses open because of governors shutting them down. All in all, it was pretty decent. I got to go out and hit some balls and have some fun. It was a good day. So I would still rate this course as, I really kind of have to say it's a B-. It's really not that great a course. It's okay. It's not bad. I played a lot worse courses than this. I've played much better courses than this, but it's somewhere in the middle. It's not bad. The greens had just been aerated and sanded within the last 2 or 3 weeks, I would say. So they were slow. Not too bad, but slow. You're out there basically playing cricket on the greens. But some of the shots were pretty good. Shots off the tee, shots off the fairway were challenging in that regard. the grass was decent, and it was, you know, a nice looking course if you ignored the houses, but you can't really ignore the houses because they so often in so many places they were right there next to the tee box, next to the green, next to the fairway, and you hear people talking, you hear things going on. So it was frustrating in a lot of ways. And on the back nine, I ended up playing with this guy who could not stop talking, which also gets to be, I mean, it doesn't matter what he says. He could be, you know, moderately interesting or whatever, you know, but people who can't stop talking during a round of golf are more of a problem than a benefit, in my opinion. And when it's just you and him, you know, it really gets to be grating. You're just trying to enjoy the round. You're struggling as it is, and you know, you don't really need all this yapping. I don't need it, almost all this yapping in my ear. Whether he thinks it's helping or not, you know, pointing out the which way to go or what's going on ahead. I don't need all that conversation while I'm trying to play. And to a certain point, that was also tiring. So there was a lot of things going on, which I would say if I had a cart would not have gone on, or certainly would have been more tolerable. So that may be biasing my judgment a little bit, but I still say about a B- course. I'd say it was a decent enough round. It was really nice environment, nice weather and everything, but I just kind of wasn't really happy with the round overall. And I wanted to go out and play today. I wanted literally to go. It's been a long time since I felt this way, where I wanted to go out and play again the next day.